It has been a long wait of more than 4 years, but finally we have Among Us. What was undoubtedly one of the most anticipated titles by all of us who are fans of Digimon, the legendary franchise created by Bandai Namco and Toei Animation. Despite having been a long wait due to the multiple delays that the title has suffered, we can already enjoy Digimon Survive, and despite everything, I can assure you that this wait has been worth it. And it is that Digimon Survive is one of the best games in the franchise that we have been able enjoy to the date, despite fitting into a generally considered niche such as visual novels. Digimon Survive presents us with a completely new story in the Digimon universe, with the new characteristics created specifically for the occasion, and with a much more adult and sinister aura than what we might originally think. When seeing a Digimon title, in fact the name of the game is clear statement of intent, since our main objective is the new adventure is to try to survive. And I can assure you that digital world is much more dangerous than we might believe at first, especially for a group of the children. Technical sections. So, Digimon Survive more than meets that what we expected from a visual novel. The different locations that we will visit are already alarmable, and the level of detail both the Digimon and the protagonist is made with great effort, but during the exploration and during the combat. However, I can't help, but I think that many of the space that we will travel through are very wasted, giving the feeling of being in front of completely empty scenarios on many occasions, especially in those in which the only thing we can do is decide where we can go. Is it worth nothing the great work of localization into Spanish carried out, or English, or even Russian? With this game, even translating multiple colloquialisms that help immerse the story sometimes that I consider extremely important, especially in case of the title so much narrative load. A small drawback the location I must mention, a small disappointment that I have found, and that is in Digimon Survive the Digimon simply evolve, not digivolve. I know this is nonsense, doesn't affect the game at all, but as a long-term Digimon fan that I am, it's a detail that I would have to like to be found. The same thing happens with the soundtrack of the title. We're facing a more than decent soundtrack, but considering that the Digimon songs are particularly hymns sung by fans around the world, not listening to any of these songs in the game, it has been a small disappointment. So about the gameplay, you can imagine being a visual novel, 80% of Digimon Survive gameplay will be based on reading and making the decision that we consider best in each situation. As a general rule, we can choose between 3 different decisions, or most occasions each of them linked into the 3 available roads: morale, harmony and choleric. This decision will have a direct impact on both the story and gameplay of the title, since depending on the road chosen, we can lose or save certain characters. Also, depending on the road we have chosen, we will have an easier time catching certain types of Digimon and more difficulty catching the others. For example, if we opt for the Wrathful path, we will have an easier time getting virus type Digimon to join our team, but on the contrary, vaccine type Digimon will be much more worrying for us. As I mentioned at the beginning of this review, Digimon Survive is much more darker and more adult story than we might have originally think Digimon game is. So much so that we'll have to be prepared to lose definitely apart from our group. During our first game, our decision will not be as important, since we will not able to avoid certain tragic events, but they will be from the new game plus, at which point we can completely change history then takes our decision. Just they affect the story and the gameplay, our decision will also affect our relationship with the teammates. Depending on the side we choose at certain times or the character we decide to support, we will obtain affinity bonus with that character, which will give us important advantages during the combat. The combats in Digimon Survive are particularly anecdotal, although yes, very enjoyable if you are a fan of turn-based strategy tactical RPGs in the first Final Fantasy Tactics or Fire Emblem style. But sadly, don't go looking for the deep of the aforementioned games in Digimon Survive fighting, as these are extremely simple. The only element that adds minimum strategy and planning prior to combat is the fact of increasing the damage when attacking from the rear or from the flank of enemy which in a certain way will force us to prepare a minimal strategy to finish with the most powerful enemies, but in general, this will not even be necessary in the vast majority of cases. This is because in the free fights, which will do level up a look for the new Digimon to join our team, we will have the possibility of taking to our enemies. In this case, the target Digimon will ask us a series of questions, which is answered correctly will open option of adding the Digimon in question to our team. Although this is in theory a good option to give more deep to the title and the fights, in the practical is an option that completely breaks most of the fights. The reason simply each Digimon will always ask you for same questions and they will want some answers, and once we know to say each Digimon, it must faster to talk to enemies and get extra items than can loot 30 minutes in totally optional fight that we will reward you very little experience. Not to mention, isn't like the similar titles where enemies progress along with our characters. Is Digimon Survive, the enemies will always be a pretended level, so if we train our Digimon too much, all the fights will be a walk will end in 1 or 2 hits. The truth is Digimon Survive is much longer than the game I would have originally thought. In fact, if we go straight to completing the game and ignore the few elements combat and exploration that the title has, we can take about 30 hours to complete the first trip and easily reach 40 hours if we dedicate ourselves to living up capturing different Digimon. This is the first trip, but once we beat the title for the first time, we can start a new game and change the destiny of these new chosen children. We can try to save everyone, or on the contrary choose a more violent path. Whenever we decide, completing the game 100% can take us close to 100 hours. So we have Digimon for a while. Well, let's get into the verdicts. If you are Digimon fan as I am, it's a game that you are going to find completely new story and much more adult and darker than the rest of the elements of the franchise. And what has happened to me will probably happen to you, happening during this analysis, and it is I could not thinking of anything else until I had finished the title. In the other hand, Digimon means nothing to you. I'm sorry to tell you that this is not your game, and that's if you were going to buy it into account its combined system. Do not sense it worth it due to incredible simplicity, something thankful for the newbies in the genre, but it becomes a work for the most veterans and enduring the fights against the bosses and much more powerful than its principle. Personally, me must admit that Digimon Survive has enchanted me and has become one of the greatest surprises of the 2022, since it's the game created entirely for the enjoyment and most of Stark fans and the franchise, despite the fact that its code have gone much more deeper into the fighting. Thank you for watching for this my video. Don't you guys forget to comment and subscribe. Please leave your comments, leave your thoughts about this game, and all the links in the descriptions. Bye.